In the golden age of television westerns, one figure stood taller than the rest, both in physical stature and in the hearts of the American public. Dan Blocker, the man who breathed life into the legendary Hoss Cartwright on Bonanza, was more than just a character on a screen. He was a symbol of strength, tempered by an almost impossible kindness. For over a decade, families gathered around their television sets to watch the big-hearted middle son of the Ponderosa navigate life with a gentle spirit and a morally upright compass that seemed to define the very best of humanity. To the world, Dan Blocker was the ultimate friend, the ultimate brother, and the ultimate gentle giant. However, behind the dust of the Nevada trails and the warm smiles shared across the Cartwright dinner table, a much darker reality was simmering. While the show projected an image of unbreakable family unity, the atmosphere on the set was often thick with a tension that threatened to boil over at any moment. It is one of the most shocking revelations in television history that the man known for his jovial nature and deep sense of loyalty actually harbored a profound and lasting resentment toward one of his closest on-screen brothers. The target of this intense frustration was none other than Pernell Roberts, the intellectual and often defiant actor who played the eldest brother, Adam Cartwright. While fans saw two brothers working side by side to protect their ranch, the reality was a clash of titans, not over ego or fame, but over fundamentally opposing views of what it meant to be an artist and a professional. Blocker, a man of deep integrity who valued the community of the show, found himself locked in a psychological battle with a co-star who openly mocked the very work that had made them household names. This investigation delves into the hidden archives of the Ponderosa to understand how the kindest man in Hollywood could come to truly hate his colleague. We explore the philosophical divide that turned the set into a minefield of eggshells and the heartbreak of a brotherhood that was broken long before the cameras stopped rolling. This is the story of the man who gave everything to his audience, and the co-star who, in Blocker's eyes, refused to give anything back. To understand the depth of the man who became an American icon, we must look back at the rugged beginnings that forged his character. Dan Blocker was born Bobby Dan Davis Blocker on December 10, 1928, in the small town of DeKalb, Texas. From the moment he entered the world, he was destined to be a figure of immense proportions, weighing an incredible 14 pounds at birth, which made him the largest baby ever born in Bowie County at the time. Growing up in the rugged hills of Texas, he was raised on a foundation of hard work, humility, and a fierce sense of family loyalty. These were not just values he learned. They were the cornerstones of a life that would later define his most famous screen role. Standing at 6 feet 4 inches and weighing approximately 300 pounds even as a young man, Dan was a literal giant among his peers. Yet, despite his imposing physical strength, he possessed a gentle spirit that was noted by everyone who met him. His parents owned a small store in O'Donnell, Texas, and it was in that community hub that he learned the importance of service and the value of a hard day's labor. While his size naturally drew him toward athletics, there was a sharp intellect beneath the surface that many overlooked. He attended the Texas Military Institute and later Sul Ross State Teachers College, where he became a standout football player, earning the respect of his teammates and coaches for his determination and discipline. However, Dan's ambitions reached far beyond the football field. He was a man of letters, graduating with a degree in English and eventually earning a master's degree in dramatic arts. This academic background provided him with a unique perspective on storytelling and performance, a depth of knowledge that would later put him at odds with those who viewed television work as beneath them. Before he ever set foot on a Hollywood soundstage, he answered a higher calling. During the Korean War, Dan was drafted into the United States Army and served with distinction as an infantry sergeant. His time in the military was transformative, instilling in him a deep respect for leadership, sacrifice, and the quiet courage required to face the harsh realities of combat. Those who served with him described a man of deep integrity who carried his strength with kindness, never letting the brutality of war fade his genuine nature. He often credited these wartime experiences with shaping his worldview and strengthening his empathy for his fellow man. Upon returning to civilian life, Dan initially sought a career as a teacher, sharing his passion for history and literature with students in Texas. He was a man who understood the weight of responsibility and the importance of professional duty. It was this background, as a scholar, a soldier, and a teacher, that created the moral framework Dan brought to Hollywood. He didn't just play a hero, he lived a life that reflected integrity and perseverance long before the fame of Bonanza ever found him. Dan Blocker's entry into the world of Hollywood was not a path paved with immediate ease. Despite his imposing frame and natural charisma, he spent the late 1950s working through the ranks, landing small parts in classic television shows like The Rifleman, Gunsmoke, and The Restless Gun. His transition from a Texas classroom to the bright lights of a television set was fueled by the same perseverance he had shown in the military and in his studies. Casting directors were quickly drawn to the unique combination of his 300-pound frame and his gentle, expressive eyes. The trajectory of his life changed forever in 1959 when he was cast as Eric Haas Cartwright in a new Western series titled Bonanza. The role was a perfect mirror for the man Dan Blocker was in real life: gentle, humorous, compassionate, and morally upright. As the big-hearted middle son of the Cartwright family, Haas became the emotional anchor of the show, balancing the intense action and adventure with a profound sense of warmth and humility. Audiences did not just watch Haas, they connected with him, making him one of the most beloved characters in the history of the medium. Bonanza rapidly ascended to become one of the most successful television series of all time, eventually running for 14 seasons. Throughout 415 episodes, Blocker became an icon of American television, standing out not as the fastest gun or the toughest cowboy, but for his undeniable humanity and decency. Behind the scenes, the bond between the cast members appeared to be just as strong as the one portrayed on the screen. His co-stars, including Lauren Green, Michael Landon, and Pernell Roberts, initially expressed deep admiration for him, often describing Blocker as the moral compass of the entire cast. During this rise to superstardom, Blocker's personal life remained his steady anchor. His marriage to Dolphia Parker Blocker, which began in 1952 long before fame arrived, served as a testament to his loyalty and grounded nature. While Hollywood offered endless distractions, Blocker remained family-oriented, often rushing home after a long day of shooting to spend quiet evenings with his wife and 4 children, rather than attending industry parties. He was a man who achieved the pinnacle of success while remaining remarkably humble, a trait that earned him the genuine love of his fans and the respect of his peers. Yet, even as the Ponderosa became a symbol of wholesome family values, the foundation of the Cartwright brotherhood was beginning to show its first invisible cracks. As Bonanza solidified its place as a cornerstone of American culture, a deep-seated tension began to emerge behind the scenes, centering on the relationship between Dan Blocker and Pernell Roberts. While they were portrayed as brothers bound by blood and land, the reality was a growing rift fueled by conflicting personalities and values. Pernell Roberts, the classically trained actor who played the intellectual Adam Cartwright, was famously outspoken and increasingly dissatisfied with the show's creative direction. He viewed the scripts as shallow and formulaic, often criticizing them for being too simple and failing to challenge social norms. This disdain for the series stood in direct opposition to Blocker's perspective. As a former teacher and soldier, Blocker prided himself on professionalism and a deep sense of loyalty to the production that had made them famous. He saw Bonanza as a rare opportunity to bring positive, wholesome entertainment into millions of American homes, viewing its morality and good-natured tone as exactly what the public needed. To Blocker, Roberts' constant vocal frustrations felt like a personal betrayal of the team effort required to make the show a success. The atmosphere on the set began to shift as Roberts' intensity and intellectual elitism clashed with Blocker's instinctual and sincere approach to acting. Blocker once remarked that working with Roberts was like walking on eggshells, because Roberts would frequently refuse to rehearse lines he deemed beneath him or poorly written. Blocker, who valued teamwork above all else, found this behavior profoundly disrespectful to the cast and crew. In his eyes, Roberts behaved as if he were smarter than everyone else on the set, a dynamic that made the collaborative environment increasingly difficult to maintain. This was not a typical Hollywood ego clash over screen time or billing. Instead, it was a fundamental disagreement over the responsibility of an artist. Roberts wanted to escape what he felt was a creative trap, while Blocker was filled with gratitude for the platform they had been given. Blocker firmly believed that a set should be like a family, and that a family does not tear each other down in front of outsiders. As the seasons progressed, the silence between the two actors during breaks grew heavier, and the gentle giant found his patience being pushed to its absolute limit by a co-star who seemed to find no joy in their shared success. As the mid-1960s approached, the family dynamic that had made the Cartwrights a household name was under immense strain behind the scenes. The philosophical divide between the two actors had manifested into a palpable atmosphere of bitterness that affected the entire production. While Dan Blocker was a man who believed in building things up, he watched with growing frustration as Pernell Roberts seemed intent on tearing them down. Blocker often felt that Roberts' disdain for the show's commercial success was not just an artistic choice, but a personal insult to those who worked tirelessly to make Bonanza a reality. This conflict reached a boiling point because of Roberts' refusal to participate in the collaborative spirit of the show. To Blocker, who carried the discipline of a soldier and the heart of a teacher, seeing a colleague treat others like fools because of a perceived intellectual superiority was intolerable. He famously noted that, "You can't build anything good out of bitterness," and he saw Roberts' presence as a source of misery for everyone involved. The tension was so thick that Michael Landon later recalled how Dan, usually the most patient man on earth, was pushed past his limits by Roberts' constant negativity. When Pernell Roberts finally made the decision to leave the series in 1965, the reaction from Blocker was a complex mixture of emotions. While there was a deep sense of sadness for the loss of the original four-man dynamic, Blocker reportedly felt an overwhelming sense of relief. He admitted in later years that he was simply glad to stop fighting every single day. The departure allowed the set to return to a state of peace and restored Blocker's natural good humor, which had been dampened by years of walking on eggshells. Despite the silence that followed Roberts' exit, Blocker couldn't completely let go of the resentment he felt for how the Brotherhood had been handled. He respected Roberts' intelligence, but he could never forgive the way Roberts had forgotten to be thankful for the success they shared. For Blocker, the hatred wasn't rooted in a desire for malice, but in a profound disappointment that a man he once admired for his talent had chosen to be cold, critical, and distant toward the very people who supported him. It was a broken brotherhood that would never truly be repaired, leaving a shadow over the Ponderosa long after the eldest son had ridden away into the sunset. The world was abruptly stunned on May 13, 1972, when news broke of the unexpected and heartbreaking death of Dan Blocker. At only 43 years old, the man who had become the moral heart of the Ponderosa passed away in Englewood, California, leaving a profound void in the entertainment industry and in the hearts of millions of devoted fans. The tragedy was compounded by the fact that it occurred during what was expected to be a routine medical procedure. Blocker had entered the hospital for a standard gallbladder surgery, a move that neither he nor his medical team considered life-threatening. Tragically, following the operation, complications arose when a blood clot formed and traveled to his lungs. This sudden and fatal blockage, known as a pulmonary embolism, cut off his oxygen supply and led to cardiac arrest. The shocking suddenness of his passing was captured in the somber news reports of the time, which simply stated that he went in for surgery, developed a clot, and died. For a man of his larger-than-life stature and legendary strength, such a quiet and sudden exit seemed almost incomprehensible to those who viewed him as invincible. The loss was devastating for his wife, Dolphia, and their 4 children, but it also shattered his extended Bonanza family. Lorne Greene was reportedly broken by the news, calling it the end of an era, while Michael Landon was inconsolable, eventually rewriting parts of the series to reflect the genuine loss of his dear friend. However, amid the outpouring of grief, the ghosts of his relationship with Pernell Roberts remained unresolved. While time had softened the edges of Blocker's anger in his final years, he had never personally reconciled with Roberts before his death. In his later interviews, Blocker spoke of Roberts with a kind of weary respect, admitting that while Roberts may have been right to want more for himself, he had forgotten the importance of gratitude. The two men who had spent years playing brothers ended their journey as strangers, divided by their opposing views of art and respect. Blocker's frustration wasn't rooted in simple malice, but in the deep disappointment that someone so talented could also be so distant and critical. He passed away with his integrity intact, but with the chapter of his brotherhood with Roberts left tragically and permanently unfinished. The legacy of Dan Blocker remains an indelible part of television history, defined not just by his massive physical stature, but by the immense warmth he brought to every home in America. As the heart and soul of the Cartwright family, he proved that true strength lies in humanity, decency, and the courage to be kind in a rugged world. While the hidden friction with Pernell Roberts revealed a more complicated reality behind the scenes, it also highlighted Blocker's unwavering commitment to the values he held dear: loyalty, professionalism, and respect for his craft. In the end, Blocker's life was a testament to the fact that success and fame do not have to change a man's soul. He remained a devoted husband to Dalphia and a grounded father to his 4 children, prioritizing the peace of his home over the glamour of Hollywood parties. His frustration with Roberts was never about simple petty jealousy, but rather a profound disappointment that an artist could be so brilliant, yet so bitter, forgetting the gratitude owed to those who built their success together. As Blocker himself once said, "You do not have to like everyone you work with, but you should always try to respect them," a lesson he lived by until his final breath. The gentle giant may have left us far too soon at the age of 43, but the echoes of his laughter and the sincerity of his performance continue to resonate with fans across generations. He taught us that goodness is a choice, and that a big heart is the most powerful tool a person can possess. We remember Dan Blocker not for the battles he fought behind the cameras, but for the light he brought to the screen and the integrity he maintained throughout his journey. What are your favorite memories of Hoss Cartwright on Bonanza? Do you think the show lost its magic after the Cartwright brothers were no longer together? We invite you to share your thoughts and stories in the comments below as we celebrate the enduring spirit of a man who was truly a giant in every sense of the word. Thank you for joining us at Memories of the Stars as we look back at the legends who shaped our world.